Hold it. Is that what you're having for breakfast?
Sure. Haven't you heard? Fiber is really good for you.
Well, there's fiber, and then there's high fiber. Try this.
Colon blow. Sounds delicious. But is it really higher in fiber than my oat bran cereal?
Take a guess. How many bowls of your oat bran cereal would it take to equal the fiber content of one bowl of colon blow?
2,
Guess again.
3,
A little higher.
4,
Keep trying.
5,
No, you'll have to do better than that.
7,
Guess again.
8,
We'll give you one more guess.
9.
Not even close. It would take over 30,000 bowls. To eat that much oat bran, you'd have to eat 10 bowls a day every day for 8.5 years.
Wow! I think I get the picture! Colon Blow must be the highest fiber cereal on the market!
Not anymore. Now that there's new Super Colon Blow.
Super Colon Blow?
It would take over 2.5 million bowls of your oat bran cereal to equal the fiber content of one bowl of Super Colon Blow.
I'm convinced.
Colon blowing you in the morning.
Colon Blow and new Super Colon Blow.
Warning, may cause abdominal distension. Consult a physician.
TBTL.
Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is?
It's Friday. Gonna get down on Friday.
Everybody's looking forward to the weekend.
One thing I can promise you is the sun will come up tomorrow, and we'll be attacking it with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
What if I came home to you and took your butter from your refrigerator, and took your butter away from you?
No, definitely. Yeah. Literally, no. Yeah. No. For sure, no. Yeah.
Pretty scoop. Poop.
All right. Hello, good morning, and welcome everyone to a Friday edition of TBTL, the show that just might be too beautiful to live.
Time is a flat circle.
My name is Luke Burbank. I'm your host.
This whole conversation bothers me.
Coming to you from the Madrona Hills studio, perched high above the mighty Columbia on a wet and foggy
Cloud fog.
Friday morning. And yet, couldn't be happier to be here with all of you, celebrating episode 4,468 in a collector series.
Let the fun begin.
There's a reason we started the show with that Colon Blow Saturday Night Live sketch. It's because number 2 stuff has been a huge theme on the show this week.
When was the last time you shit your pants? Been a while?
Because Andrew was having his colonoscopy. We're going to get an update on that. And then the Seahawks, the Seattle Seahawks football team, they're adding to the discourse with a new commercial about the Old Kingdom bathrooms that was sort of triggering for me as someone who once had an incident in an Old Kingdom bathroom.
For me, a bathroom is just a library with a cold seat.
So we'll talk about that. And then Andrew and I we've committed that after today's show, we are not talking about number 2 stuff or bathroom stuff for a long, long time. Today is the end of that line of conversation for a good while, for those of you that don't like that kind of fresh talk. But we do have a little bit more of it that we have to bring you today to get the update on how this guy's doing. By the way, he is the longest-running co-bro of the show.
What the hell is even that?
Maybe best known for his depictions of the tall ships. He is Andrew Walsh, and he's joining me right now. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Luke. I just threw away all of this paperwork that has been a constant on my desk for the past week or so. All this paperwork about what to expect when you're expecting a colonoscopy.
The paperwork is finished.
Exactly. So I'm glad to be able to get rid of all this colonoscopy paperwork. You ever have something like that where you've had something on your horizon for so long that whatever the prep work for it is just sitting on your desk, that it becomes part of the furniture?
Absolutely.
And then you're just like, oh my God, I don't need this stuff anymore. Like the thon is over. I can delete these emails or whatever.
Thon is over if you want it.
Thon is
over now.
If you want it, that would be a great way for us to close out the TB Telethon this year.
I know what you mean, though. Like, you hang on to something, whether it's an instruction manual or just this thing where you're like, yeah, but what if they call and they say we can't find it, and you knew you faxed it, but they might not have it. And then there's also that point of finality where you're like, well, I'm not getting another one of these colonoscopies, ideally, for a good while, and so I can actually toss this out. Now, if we can, Andrew, for a minute, center me in the conversation. I want to talk to you about how I became aware of the fact that you had survived your colonoscopy and that you were doing fine. And that was because I was in the midst with a text chain with our friend Television's Chris Hayes yesterday. And he had heard, I don't want to put his business out there, but let's just say he was responding to some of the stuff I had said recently while I was in New York City. And he was texting you and me about this, and we were going back and forth. And at this time, I assumed you were, I would say under the knife, but it's not really a knife. You were under the cam.
I was around the tube.
Yes, you were. You were minding the gap.
Yeah.
In the tube, around the tube. Anyway, so I figured that this was more or less Chris and I texting, and that you might see it later when you emerge from your haze and your days of propofol. And I said I was texting something with Chris, and then you just respond. This is at, let's see, 3:12 p.m. West Coast time yesterday. You just said, that would be so cool. And then I said,
I hearded one of
You hearted something at 3:12 and then at 3:25. So again, you're moving slow. You've been through a procedure. So it's taking you, was that 13 minutes between hearting something and then coming in with original content that says,
I think I was moving. I think I hearted it when I was like in the facility, and then I finally had a chance to respond when I was in the car.
Gotcha. So you said, that would be so cool. And then I said, well, by my watch, someone is officially post-colonoscopy. And then you said, I'm in the middle of it right now. Wild ride.
Yes.
And that's when I knew my good friend Andrew was back, baby.
Oh, I thought you were going. I feel like I was trying to maybe be pre-defensive there, because I thought you were going to say that what I texted was a little bit weird or something like that, because maybe I was still under the drugs. But I just wanted you to know that I stand by what we were texting about. That would be so cool.
Absolutely. No, but I thought that was funny, and Television Chris Hayes also loved it.
Yeah.
My response was, you're handling it with grace and power like a tall ship.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. No, of course that was a bit of a jape. I was not actually texting you while the tube was in there, but not long after, to be honest with you. That might have been my first post colonoscopy text. Everything went pretty well, I think. I'm here.
Can we start at the big? Yes. Okay, that's good. I did have, I had a moment on. So we recorded 2 episodes on Wednesday because obviously you were going to be busy on Thursday, as you were. And Wednesday night, as I was falling asleep, I did have a kind of a moment of concern, and it was, we have absolutely no plan B for if this either goes poorly or if you get really bad news or if you respond negatively to. I mean, they make you sign a million things that say this could kill you.
Sure, I know.
And it's like we were just kind of, we were treating this like this was not going to. There was no chance of this having a particularly negative outcome, and of course, it's unlikely that it would. But on Wednesday night, I was like, oh, man, I really hope. I mean, just because, first of all, as your friend, I want it to go well for you, but also as a content creator, I was like, what do we do if this goes off the rails in some kind of a way? And so when I got that text from you and I knew you were okay and you had your wits about you and your sense of humor back, I was really relieved. But can we go back to Thursday morning? You get up, you're now in like pretty much fasting mode on Thursday morning?
Yeah, let's see. So the last time I ate was Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. I had a bowl of cereal, pre-approved cereal, not colon blow. Let's see.
How many bowls of your regular cereal do you think it would take?
Not even close. But so it was a long fasting, and I keep on trying to figure out. I think I'm just like I don't fast very often or ever, so I was getting a little whiny by Wednesday night. I was so hungry because I had eaten at, a bowl of cereal at 9 a.m. on Wednesday. And then by, 8, 9 o'clock on Wednesday night, I was getting really, really hungry. I guess I'd already taken the liquid colon blow by that point.
maybe I've missed the key part of this story. How was the potion?
The potion. The motion of the potion.
Mm-hmm.
It was... So I was very nervous about a lot of aspects of this, more nervous than I think I was letting on. In fact, you know how they say, you know that famous saying, the body keeps the score? Who's that attributed to?
I don't know, but it was on the
Tolkawande.
spine. It was on the spine of a book that the therapist that I went to couples therapy with at the end of my last marriage. And it was just like the visual backdrop of a tough time in my life, if that makes sense. I'd just be sitting in this room talking, and then but staring at something that says the body keeps the score. I think I kind of have a sense of what that means. It's probably about, trauma and kind of the way that it's almost physical in the way that we are triggered.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the extent of my knowledge of it, is looking at the book that says that.
I've been misusing it. It does have to do with the trauma and this, so I don't mean to misuse that, but there is something.
You're thinking the booty keeps the score.
That is.
We said today is the final day. We're having a closeout sale on all terrible backside humor, and it's after today we have to get all this stuff off the lot.
Is making that a show title underscoring it too much? Because I really did have thoughts, like your casual thoughts about what will you do if I'm dead on Friday. Thank you for that. By the way,
or you just got some upsetting news,
Right.
Seriously.
But also I was sort of having some regrets about how much we did sort of lean into the poopy side of the talk and how much just time we have dedicated to the conversation of my colonoscopy, especially after we went through all of this with you. But I did read, I was feeling okay about things, as we discussed, until like a few days before I had to start my prep, and I started to really drill down on the information they had given me, and there were some pretty alarming like warnings in there about like every aspect of this, from like like you're going to have to drink the solution. And they didn't say it's going to taste terrible, but they said, make sure you have a lollipop to suck on afterwards. Make sure you drink it through a straw or hold your nose while you're drinking it. So I'm like, what is this concoction that they're going to make me drink? And then I started hearing from a lot of listeners who said, it's not so bad, or I mixed it with this or that. But it turns out there's a whole bunch of different versions of this stuff. And so I don't know which of their listeners had to drink the same stuff I had to drink. Again, I don't know how it's pronounced. It's Soufflave. I'm assuming F-L-A-V is Flav because there's a flavor packet you put in there.
I'm legally obligated to say that every time you say the word Soufflave. I apologize.
But, I was kind of getting in my head about all of it. Oh, the body keeps the score thing, by the way. I was just going to say, I thought I was relatively chill, generally speaking, going into this, at least a few days before the prep. But, man, I have had, like, this eczema outbreak on my arm that I have not had for years. Like I don't suffer from eczema that badly. I've looked online. By the way, don't, unless you have to. But if you're ever curious, like I have a little rash here. How does mine sort of measure up to the world of eczema? I have looked online, and I don't want to complain too much about it because it looks like most eczema is way, way, way more severe than mine. But it was sort of funny how I'm kind of like, I got this, but my body is like literally giving me all of these signs of being like, dude, you got a lot of stress going on. It's kind of like low level like stuff going on inside of here. So that's why I brought up the booty keeps the score, which may be the show title. Is that too much? Okay, I was going to say, is that leaning into this too much on the final day of colonoscopy?
I think for our final
talk?
day, I think as we close the week out, I think we might as well end strong.
Yeah,
and then maybe that will also help kind of flush it out of our system, so to speak, so that we come back Monday
right back
without any of that kind of, without any of that kind of talk on the mind.
So just to give you an answer to how the Flava Flav was, it was not so bad. I mean, clearly this one sheet that I was reading was preparing me for the worst case scenario of every step along the way of this colonoscopy prep.
Don't you think that whoever wrote that, it might be worth revisiting that, because to the degree that that's a disincentive for people to go through the process, like I know they think, well, we're just warning people, we're making sure they're doing it right and they know it might suck, et cetera. But I feel like there must be some percentage of people who read that, what you read, and they don't push through like you did.
I feel like they could have said something in there, like most people don't have any issue drinking this
Right.
stuff. But if you're somebody who's especially sensitive to taste or,
Add
something.
a line that just says it wasn't Kool-Aid. It was Flavor Aid.
Right. That's just one quick conversation in the hallway. Just one person to kind of say that. So anyway, I was really I was nervous about both the fasting part of this for the, it was more than 24 hours, and that's where I was starting to talk before about I don't think I had to wait longer than most people. I do think that maybe if I had scheduled my colonoscopy earlier on the second day, maybe I wouldn't have had to go so long without eating. But
you
honestly,
could have had more of it be sleeping time, maybe. Or
yeah,
something.
I think I could have, but whatever. It was fine. The fasting wasn't ideal. I told you I'd bought Jell-O and made Jell-O for the first time, and I actually did eat. I'm kind of glad I did have that because on the liquid diet, you could drink broth. You could eat Jell-O and you could drink liquids, as long as they didn't have kind of red dye in them. By the way, I do think I came up with a wonderful hack for this period because they say you can drink plain broth like chicken broth or something, which is fine. And I did buy some bouillon. We had some, Genevieve said, we have bouillon at home. I grabbed the bouillon cubes out of the cupboard. We had beef and chicken flavored. One of them had expired in 2017. The other one, the expiration date, whatever it was, had worn off of it, but what was still on there was the price tag from a place called Star Market, a grocery store Genevieve went to with her roommates when she lived in Boston. That is how long we had these cubes of bouillon. We've been together.
Move over, fancy envelopes.
That's right.
There's a new longtime traveler in town.
I was just I cannot believe we have bouillon in the cupboard. We clearly don't use it that much. Since Genevieve was going under this walking underneath this shitty tunnel in East Somerville to go to the scary Star Market when we were just
that moved to Seattle, to Los Angeles, back to Seattle, multiple locations.
Moved to New Hampshire.
Excuse me, how dare I leave out New Hampshire?
Yes.
That's insane.
It is insane. So I threw all that away, obviously. I got myself some fresh bouillon, which I didn't use. Got myself a thing of chicken broth, which I didn't use, because what I bought that I did use during this clear liquid phase, and for folks who like this stuff, this is the key: miso soup. You're already almost always drinking that anyway. You just leave out the tofu, the tofu, and the seaweed. And it's just as it's wonderful. And that really got me through that day of fasting. Was I kind of just sipping on that stuff and some Jell-O and a lot of liquids. And that was kind of fine. Drinking the souffle itself, not ideal. Here's how I would describe it. You know that I was telling you how much I love Gatorade anyway. I actually have to kind of sort of repress my impulse to drink too much Gatorade, or suppress, I guess I should say. This is kind of like bad, slightly saltier, slightly thicker Gatorade, which is not you don't put that on the bottle. You're not trying to sell slightly saltier, slightly thicker Gatorade. But it's not the worst thing in the world. It doesn't taste like sewage or something like that. You don't have to hold your nose and drink it. It's not the most pleasant thing, but it's also not that pleasant because you're drinking it for the first time thinking I don't know. I know generally speaking what this is going to do to me. I'm connecting the idea of drinking this stuff with rushing to the bathroom, which could happen at any moment. There's just a lot going on in your mind about it. But you know what I kept thinking of? As I'm drinking my second or third dose of this, you have to drink it in 1 cup increments, and there's 4 cups. It's a quart. You basically have to drink a quart the night before and a quart the morning of your colonoscopy, and you drink that quart in 4 1-cup kind of doses sort of across an hour. I think they don't want you to chug the whole thing because you might just skyrocket into the space. And I started thinking, I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. I had little candies standing by. They're like, you might need to drink candy after this because of the taste. Drink candy. You might have to eat candy after this or suck on a candy. So I went and I bought some Jolly Ranchers. I thought, Jolly Ranchers will be the perfect thing during this period of not eating. Except you can't have red, blue, or purple dye. I thought for sure, I guess I Berenstain Bared this. I thought there was going to be yellow, green, and orange Jolly Ranchers. No, the only ones in this entire giant bag I bought that I could eat were green.
I would have definitely told you that there is 100% a Well, you can't do purple, obviously, but I would have.
Yeah.
I would have probably said I think that there's like
an orange, like a really
an orange.
Yeah, there was no orange. So anyway, so I get home, I open up my Jolly Ranchers. I'm like, oh, I guess I can only eat green, which is probably my least favorite flavor of those. I separate out the greens. Only green Jolly Ranchers. It says it in my rider.
Yeah.
But those weren't like especially necessary. But yeah, I drank that stuff, and I sort of thought, what would Lachlan do in The White Lotus? Was that
Lachlan
the kid's
Murdoch?
name? Was that the kid's name? Yeah.
Lockie, the kid we like.
Remember how he was like drinking his brother's like protein shakes? He wanted
That's
to be
a big
like a
plot
hot
point,
boy.
It turns out.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, this can't be worse than most of those like weird shakes people drink before they go to the gym or something like that.
Yeah, right.
It's just like
I've never had one of those, but I think that's a solid theory.
You just separate it out from why you're doing it. You could even see a world. It's like, oh, if I was on some health kick and somebody said this is the health stuff you have to drink every morning.
Yeah.
You would just get used to it pretty quickly. So I feel like the first few doses of that were the worst because I was so in my mind about it. I'm like, oh, am I going to drink this? Oh, like I got to drink.
Is my butt going to fall off?
Right. And it did a couple of times. They sewed it back on.
Speaking of, without getting into the graphic details, was the amount of bathroom time you had to spend, was it worse than you expected, not as bad as you expected, about what you expected?
The amount of time was less, because here was another thing that got in my head was they were saying in this kind of warning sheet, I'll call it, that says across the top, warning, sheet.
Warning, you might sheet your pants.
Exactly what I was going for there, yeah. They had things like, make sure you take a towel in the car with you and put it on the car in case you can't hold your bowels on the way to the colonoscopy. I'm like, my God. So that just sort of put in my head. So from the moment I start drinking this stuff, I am going to be nonstop, uncontrollable.
It's going to be a cartoonish amount, a Tim and Eric amount of bathroom stuff.
Exactly. But like, that's just not how it works. That's not how any of this works. You're not eating anything during this time. So like what happens is you drink the stuff and then, pretty quickly I guess it took at least an hour for it to kick in or for it to fully kick in because I had this thing is like I wanted to have it all. I wanted to drink it all, the complete quart of it, before the bathroom phase began because I didn't want to be sitting in the bathroom both drinking this stuff and expelling this stuff at the same time.
You didn't want to be like one of those like little desktop like Zen fountains the same water. It's just being recirculated. It's just like in a perpetual hydrologic loop.
So I had, and because I had just had on a very, very empty stomach because I also had a kind of a busy day on the day on Wednesday, I had had that bowl of cereal in the morning, then absolutely nothing, and then had some miso soup, which like much later in the day. So already that was sort of sitting in my stomach, getting a little bit rumbly tumbly. Then I started drinking this stuff, but I was like, just what do we say to souffle? Not today. I just kind of kept like repressing it until I had, or again suppressing it until I had completed the first quart of this stuff. And then by the time I went into the bathroom, the mind was willing, but the body was also willing. I just, it did what it was supposed to do. It did what it was supposed to do. The floodgates opened. And then, you do have to stay put for a while, but probably more like, maybe an hour, maybe 45 minutes, and then eventually you're like, okay, I can face the world. But then maybe for the next hour after that, you still might run to the bathroom or go to the bathroom a couple more times. But like pretty quickly, there's not a lot more to give. And so and I'm like, oh, okay. And so then throughout the evening, I'm just like, sipping a little bit of broth here and there, having a little bit of Jell-O, but like you're just not intaking a lot of stuff. So then by the next morning you wake up, really the only thing that's in your stomach is your second bottle of souffle. And so you drink that one and it just washes you out once again just to make sure that there was nothing else in there. And then I drank that so many hours before I was even supposed to go in that by the time I got in the car, it wasn't even a thought. Now, I've heard from
Yeah.
some people who said, oh, yeah, actually, I was a little bit nervous getting in the car. Mileage may vary, but I'm sort of telling this story because I had so much anxiety after reading this prep material that I do want to kind of calm people a little bit who haven't tried it yet, because your story on this was so chill, bro, that I think it was a good PSA for people to get this done. I don't want to be the opposite of that. I'm really glad to be on the other side of this.
Yeah.
And every step was exaggerated quite a bit because I think they felt like they had to cover all of their bases to warn you about the worst case scenario, but the worst case scenarios never really popped up. I'm not saying that I want to do this weekly. I'm really glad to be on the other side of this now. And of course, the prep is once you're there, it's like any other kind of outpatient procedure, right? They're going to knock you out. I didn't love getting the needle in my arm, but it's no different for the what do you call it, for the IV drip, you know? But it's no different than giving some blood or whatever. I just get in my head about that. But that was that was the worst part of the whole thing for me, was me telling them I'm not great with needles, so just entertain me while you poke me.
So then once they had the IV running and you did all the questions and everything, and they're wheeling you in for the procedure, what was your your level of anxiety then? Were you
I think
feeling
somewhat
okay?
high. I know that when the doctor came in, she as I'm sitting in this little room, it's also just very weird. I'm sitting there in one of those robes or gowns or whatever, and you just feel it's nobody's favorite place to be. I'm especially, I think, sort of feel maybe anxious in situations like that. So, various people are coming in. Nurses are, hooking me up to this or that, prepping me for this or that. Then the anesthesiologist comes in and she kind of gives me the rundown. Then the doctor comes in. And I think by this point, because I had told them I'm not great with needles with the IV thing, they started treating me a little bit with kid glove. These two nurses they were so scared of me fainting on them or something, which I never came close to fainting, but they don't, all they're going by is this guy says that he gets a little lightheaded sometimes. So they gave me some ice packs and everything. And I think I was just sort of I was just so ready for it to be done with by the time the doctor came in. She said, oh, yeah, first timer, you have that look on your face or something like that. So I know that people, I think I had a bit of a grim resolution about me, probably. I could hear while I'm waiting in this one area that is quasi-private because they've drawn all these curtains around me.
Yeah.
I can still hear doctors having conversations with other people who are going in for their various endo-related procedures, right? And I can fully hear the conversations other doctors are having with other patients, and I kind of didn't love that. So when the doctors came in to talk to me, I didn't get real chatty about it. I was just yes, no, whatever. I just wanted to get it over with. So I think I had a sort of a grim determination about me that probably most of the caregivers probably thought I might have been maybe a little bit more freaking out than I actually was. But eventually, they walk me into the room. They have me lay on my side, and they said, and the biggest worry there for me is, I always think they're not going to give me enough. I'm no, you don't understand. You got to give me a lot. Boy likes drugs. Give him drugs. So I'm always, but so the last thing I remember is laying on my side and looking straight ahead.
They put the mask over your nose?
This one wasn't so much a mask as it's a little thing that goes around your ears, and then two little prongs go up your nose. And but then
you're counting backwards.
No, they didn't even do that with me this time.
Wow.
They did that when I had my last surgery. This one was. And I was ready for that. They hooked me up to all that stuff, and then they said, we're going to confirm some things. Your name is this, yes.
Yeah, did they do that thing? Did every person you encounter have you reconfirm your name like they did?
Oh, yeah, that's and birth date. And so they did all that. And you're here for a colonoscopy, yes? I'm yes. And okay, we're just going to get this going. You might feel some coldness in your arm as we get the medicine going. And I remember at the moment being kind of nervous about that. I've had this type of anesthetic a couple of times, and it's never been a problem, but suddenly I was just sort of nervous in this case. And I just remember laying on my side looking at the button on the nurse's shirt, because if you can imagine, she's sort of standing and I'm laying on this table and there's a button right in front of me, and the last thing I remember is looking at that button thinking I really don't think they're going to give me enough of this stuff. And the last thing I remember was the button. Because
Yes.
again, they're warning you, like, there's a very rare chance you could wake up during this and remember. Some patients do remember. It doesn't usually happen. The doctor at one point said, this is a very safe procedure. It's only 1 out of 1,000 times that something could go wrong. And I started really doing the math, and then 1 out of 1,000
You're like, wow,
doesn't sound
that's
like
actually
that much. And,
I'm a special guy.
yeah, and I'm like, I don't have the best luck. Like,
I'm 1 in 1,000.
Yeah, sure. I'm 1 of 1,000. So anyway, I guess
Sure.
I was starting to get in my head a little bit, but I don't know. But once you're in there, you're just sort of like, I just can't wait for the drugs to kick in, and then that's the last thing you remember. And then I woke up, and I tried to make a funny when I woke up, which I don't know how it went. I just remember telling the nurse as I was waking up, she's like, "How you feeling?" I'm like, I remember saying, God, I don't even know how this came out on drugs. I remember saying, do you know if they put the plaque for best patient ever back here or out in the waiting room for everybody to see?
That is the most. I say this with love and admiration. That is the most Andrew joke. Now, how did you have to Did you have to do an Adam Scott from Severance where you burned that into your brain before you went into the procedure so that you would remember it on the severed floor?
No, that was the freewheeling Bob Dylan. Yeah.
Wow. I thought maybe you planned that before and then you were just like trying to get it through to the other side of your procedure so that you would remember it.
No, I didn't have that much forethought. I just remember. I give her credit for riffing. She said, "No, we're going to send it to you." I was like, "Oh,
that's
nice."
Actually pretty funny.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Probably not. Maybe they. I just think that they deal with a lot of dad humor probably in those situations, so they know how to handle it. But anyway, yeah. So everything went really well, and I'm glad. Well, I will. Oh, one other thing that was sort of relevant to your interests or related to the story that you told with your whole experience of this, which is kind of the phase I'm in now. When you got your colonoscopy, I believe it was the next day during TBTL, you seemed. I don't think to the listeners they would have noticed, but I even noticed like you seemed very distracted. You weren't laughing at my hilarious jokes about best patient certificates, and you didn't seem very distracted, but you were. I could just tell something was off. And then the next day you opened up on the show and said, "I was really distracted during the show yesterday because I had gotten some early results about my colonoscopy, and you found them to be like really alarming because you were trying to dig into this medical language." And then I believe it was later that evening or something, you got the note from the doctor that interpreted all of that and said, "You're good to go." And you had learned a lesson like, don't, first of all, open medical results during TBTL. And secondly, don't try to interpret them without your doctor's notes, right?
Yes, that is exactly what happened. Have you gotten that info yet?
Well, I thought.
And are you currently opening it?
What I thought was interesting was they asked me. I might have that information, and I haven't opened it. But ahead of time, Luke, they asked me, and I don't think I would have known how to answer this without you telling me that story. The nurse, as she was prepping me, was going through all the details, and she said, "Now, there's a way you can get the results. If we have to like kind of remove any polyps or anything and biopsy them, you can get the results immediately from the lab and then have the doctor's interpretation come once the doctor has put eyes on it, or we can hold back and send it to you all at the same time with both the results and the doctor's interpretation." And I was like, oh, that's exactly, because once you kind of realized your circumstance, we realized it was about some sort of medical disclosure law, right? It was actually some legal thing, like the lab has to
I think
send
somebody
it to you
clarified.
directly. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of some patient's bill of rights or something.
Sure.
Which is one of those kind of things where it's like, sort of the law of unintended consequences. Like this idea is that like patients should have all of the information. We shouldn't be waiting for these gatekeepers or having to only, take their opinion on the matter. We should get the raw data. But then the fact of the matter is most of us, at least me, we don't know how to interpret the raw data.
Exactly, right. Or I'm doing my own, it's like it just has a real I'm doing my own research sort of vibe, right? So I really appreciated them
that's a good policy.
Giving me that policy. And I don't know that I would have even understood the significance of it had you not explained your situation. So all I know is afterwards they told me we found 2 like very small polyps, like we're sending them in, but they just seemed very unconcerned about that thing. They also said they found something called a chicken jockey. I don't know what
Yeah.
that is, but apparently they were very excited about that.
Did you explain Freezer Feast to them?
Right.
That could be related.
I was like, oh, that's a Stouffer's chicken jockey in there.
Yeah. Put some respect on its name.
So anyway,
that's been there since football season.
it'll pass.
Clear.
Just give it. It'll be ready by the preseason. But anyway, so they seem very unconcerned. And right now, I do have a message waiting for me in my chart, and so I don't know if that is accompanied by a doctor's note or not. But like, I'm feeling like I'll check it out after the show. But they seemed, pretty unconcerned. So I'm pretty. And they mentioned very briefly like, oh, your prep, you did well in your prep or something. I feel like they know now that people really want to hear that. I didn't even ask, but they were just kind of threw that out there, and it sounds like almost everybody kind of gets that attaboy unless they do something really wrong.
Well, that was the last question I had for you, because you are, you do like a good attaboy here and there, and I did not get this from my provider. I did not get a compliment that was like, we've seen really clean colons, and we've seen pristine colons, and then, sir, there's your colon. Like, which some other people, I believe our friend P. Fletch might have gotten a real high five on that. Yeah. Other people were sort of, I'm going to be honest with you, bragging. Mm-hmm. Other people were bragging about, their how complimentary the staff was. I did not get a compliment. They were able to do the procedure on me, so it was obviously like things were fine enough for them to do what they needed to do. But I didn't get there weren't people gathered around me like maybe I had seen a vision of the Virgin Mary in a tortilla, and they were there to touch the hem of my robe, which is what I was kind of looking for. Did you get that sort of response?
Did they give you, it was, oops, all berries.
Ooh.
after yours. No, they just sort of mentioned, I think, again, I was sort of in a fog. I was waking up. I will say this, the effect of the drugs afterwards lasted with me, I feel like, longer than I remembered from other surgeries and procedures. Like, I remember feeling, I thought I was going to come out of this feeling very elated and almost like euphoric and
that's kind of how
hungry.
I felt.
And that's how a lot of people say they felt. And I felt that way after other things before. I remember Genevieve wheeling me out of, most places don't even let you walk out, has been my experience. They because, again, of probably laws or official procedures,
liability,
they have to wheel you out, No, they were just like, yeah, go ahead. It was like the most wobbly I've ever been, and the most that they were like, go ahead, you got this. And I'm like, thank you. So I was still feeling,
I wonder if that's because you kept begging them to up your dose.
I do wonder if I kept saying that. I do wonder.
At some point, was the anesthesiologist standing on the other side of the room with a tranquilizer dart, hunting you like a bear?
I'd like to think so. I was
just kept shooting. You were up that tree, and they brought out that trampoline. They were trying to get something soft for you to fall on.
I will say the room was pretty disheveled, actually, when I woke up. Now that I think about it, apparently I kept saying Hulk smash. I don't know what that means.
That's really funny that you're. Because you were saying that like you were worried about not being knocked out enough, and that you think you might have a high tolerance to various things, and yet this really did a number on you. Whereas I had the opposite experience. Like, I felt pretty much myself maybe 3 minutes into the ride home. Becca drove me home, and I was like, I felt pretty fine. This was pretty minor for me.
That's how I felt, again, the few times that I've had something like this before. This time, and I also expected, so I guess the maybe the last interesting point here is everybody wants to know, what was your first meal, right? Because when you're fasting the day before, I said I was like a guy like in a Vietnam movie, like talking to my buds about everything I'm going to do when I get back home to the States. I was like sitting on my couch, like just like really hungry on, I guess, Wednesday night.
I'm going to get me a Cadillac, and I'm going to get me a real pretty girl, and then we're going to go and I'm going to have a T-bone steak.
Exactly. Luke, I was sending my buddies videos of the Chili's I love my baby back ribs commercial. Like, I was like, for some reason I was really fixated on Chili's on Wednesday night. I was like, I don't care. I'm going to get out of that. I'm going to be feeling so good. I'm going to have Genevieve drive me to a Chili's. I'm going to get something called wing dingers or rib poppers. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I just cannot wait for that. And I'll be honest with you. I got out of it. I was still like kind of. I'll bet you I didn't have that euphoric feeling because I don't fast all that often, and I think I was just like. I think the underlying stress of all of this and the fact that I did it all on a very, very empty stomach, and I was so hungry, and my stomach had probably shrunk a bit or whatever, just like I was so flushed out that when I got in the car, I was just like, no, let's just go home. Like I don't want to. The idea of eating anything hearty seemed so unappealing to me. So unappealing. Luke, I came home. I got in the car. I was like, I'm not even hungry right now. By the end of the car ride home, maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, I was feeling hungry as I walked in the house, but the only thing I could possibly bring myself to eat was more miso broth.
Whoa.
And I did end up having a thing of like just Campbell's chicken
red
soup.
Jello.
Yeah, I just went
because
to
you
town
could.
on red Jello. I just buried my face in it.
Yeah.
Motorboated it.
Yeah.
I just had a thing of Campbell's chicken noodle soup, like classic Campbell's chicken noodle soup with some club crackers, which I told my friends yesterday. It's like, for some reason I think of club crackers as Ritz crackers for grandparents who play bridge. Like, why do club crackers just have this like 1980s grandparents? Like, we went over, we smoke a lot, we went to our friend's place to play bridge, and there were club crackers there. I will
tell you what's also in that living room: a TV tray.
Yes, exactly.
100%. Those are probably sitting on a TV tray.
Yes, exactly.
Near a recliner.
But yeah, I had some crack. I just had the most mild little thing of soup, and then I ended up eating a lot more of the green Jello. I was like, well, I'm going to throw this away. I don't need it anymore. I was like, well, maybe I'll have a couple of bites of it, and then I just ate it. I don't even think I like Jello, but I think my body was still just sort of, I don't know, just sort of in this weird mode. Yeah, just a weird mode. Like, I don't know. I'd love to hear from people, because you said you had a smoothie after yours, right?
No, I had Becca made me like a thing that, again, this actually sort of to your point, because I feel like when I told you this, or maybe I'm assuming the listeners were like, oh, that doesn't sound as fun as we were hoping for, because what it was like this really yummy rice and tofu and like edamame bean thing, but it was very salty in a good way and flavorful, but very kind of like, and also in a certain way, I guess you could say mild.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a big, giant, I don't know what my celebratory thing would be, but it wasn't a giant cheeseburger, or something. It was something that, and she was, because she's smart, probably was like, it might be nice to ease this guy back into food. But it was very tasty, but also kind of gentle on the stomach.
Yeah, and then I really wasn't. And then I came downstairs and I ended up sleeping some more by the time I got home. It really, one of the reasons I'm feeling better now. I actually had my first cup of coffee in days right before the show, so I'm actually probably talking a mile a minute. But I was still groggy. I ate that soup. I came downstairs and it was like 5 o'clock in the evening, and I fell back asleep. And I slept until I think I had like a 90-minute nap in the kind of early evening, which is a dangerous game, Dano, because then I couldn't sleep last night. But I don't know. I was just like, I'm just going to do what my body tells me to do, and it's telling me to sleep some more. So I just went back to sleep after eating that soup, and then I stayed up until like 3 in the morning. I think I got into the pretzels around 2 in the morning. So don't worry. Don't worry. We're back on the carb loading before I fall asleep.
Baby.
Yeah. So
what did you have? Did you have some breakfast today?
No, I'm not a big breakfast guy.
I know. I just think coming off that, like your body is literally eating itself.
Yeah, well,
dangerously low on hot dogs.
I ate a lot of pretzel rods last night. I probably had
so
7 pretzel rods right before going to bed.
So you've gotten some fuel back in your system. But I mean, honestly, for you to not basically eat for a day, if not longer, and then to have just a can of soup, that's not a lot. It's not a lot of food for a growing boy.
It was really weird. Yesterday was just the past few days have just been kind of weird days for me. I do feel good today. I just want to reiterate one more time, quick kind of business note here. I'm not sending out a TBTL newsletter today, so I am excited not to be the laziest boy in the world. And I know a lot of people get colonoscopies. It's not like I don't deserve a pat on the back or any special dispensations, but I'm giving myself one anyway, which is when we're done with TBTL today, I'm done for the week, and so I'm not sending out a newsletter.
You're by tonight, you'll be, I hope, back to your normal self, enjoying the classic rivalry game
Oh, are you talking about the Vetter Cup? Oh,
I'm talking
man.
about the Vetter Cup.
I'm going to sign
Everybody's
up for,
talking about the Vetter Cup.
I'm going to go sign up for Apple TV Plus right now so I can watch the Vetter Cup tonight. I think I'm just a Royals fan now, honestly.
We'll never be Royals.
We was hoping for some razzle-dazzle.
Razzle-dazzle.
That's right, man. Razzle-dazzle.
On your mark.
On your mark.
Get set.
Get set.
Now ready.
Ready. Go.
Everybody razzle dazzle.
Hey, let's thank some dazzling donors. These folks are donating a dazzling amount of dough. It is the only way that this show can exist. 100% listener-supported podcasting. Thanks to Carolyn Curley in Encinitas, California.
Carolyn, a very familiar name, and
Carolyn,
face
just
and
north
friend.
of just north of classic Seattle rivals, the San Diego Padres.
That's right.
They're in North San Diego County. Carolyn says, "Dear lovelies." Hey, you know what? That has a nice ring to it. Dear lovelies.
I love that. Yes.
Next time you're trying to write "Hey dummies," just take a moment and think, "Dear lovelies." I should have written "Dear lovely" to whoever it was I was calling a dummy all those years ago.
But then what would we call our video series?
"Hey lovelies" wouldn't be quite as I don't know,
endearing,
enticing. TBTL is my favorite podcast since 2009. Whew, it's going way back, Carolyn. Those are the early days.
Well, not to undermine that, but have there been any other podcasts since 2009? Has anybody released any new podcasts?
I'm trying to think. Oh, you mean since then?
Yeah,
I thought you meant going back to.
No, I'm trying to think. Like since 2009,
right.
TAL was already out, right? This American Life was already podcasting at that point. I think a Conan O'Brien one came out since 2009.
Nothing's coming to mind currently as far as new podcasts. Carolyn says, "I am promoting my book. It's called The Guidance Groove, Escape Unproductive Habits, Trust Your Intuition, and Be True." God, I would like to do all of those things.
Well, I know the book for you.
It's designed to help you achieve more contentment, ease, and openness, and let go of the stories created in your mind that trick you into being anxious, afraid, and discontented. I describe 4 unproductive grooves that prevent contentment and trap us into believing that resources are scarce and we are inadequate, obligated, or unworthy. I'm a biology professor at UC San Diego. I remember this. And I teach the book as a seminar, and it's a joy to help my students realize they can rewire their brains and learn to be content. I have to say that, this is something that I constantly struggle with, and I'm constantly trying to reframe my thinking on, of just I don't think of myself as an anxious person, but I think a lot of the behaviors that I do, and a lot of the, I think I'm low key an anxious person, even though, again, I don't talk about it a lot and I don't identify as such, and I have to constantly kind of go back to reminding myself that we do not know the future, and also, I mean, that's it more for me than the past. I don't have a lot of regret around things that have happened, but I think I do have a lot of anxiety about how things might go in the future. And you get trapped in that thinking, and it can make you feel really anxious. And so I might have to get this book or take the class. I may have to move to San Diego, Andrew, and enroll at Carolyn's college there, UC San Diego, and see if I can learn how to unwire these things. It's definitely something that I do.
I just don't know if you and I can be friends, though, if you're in San Diego and I'm in Seattle, and that intense
of the rivalry.
The intense rivalry between the two cities and baseball teams.
Bonus points to all TBTL fans who figure out which story in the book is inspired by Luke's life.
Yeah, wow. Are you getting points on the back end on that?
Better be. I think these are the points Carolyn is donating to the show.
Yes, yeah, good point.
This is our compensation, and we will take it. Thank you, Luke and Andrew. There's like a made-up guy named Duke who gets someone pregnant at 17?
Duke Lurbank sounds familiar.
Yeah. Thank you, Luke and Andrew, for your willingness to let us into your lives, as it makes us all feel more connected. You've grown so much over the years. I love you, and I'm grateful for you. You can learn more, by the way, about Carolyn's book at guidancegroove.com, guidancegroove.com. And I think that this is a very good, I think, a necessary book for people who like this show, because the kind of person, I think, who identifies with us, Andrew, and who, listens to this day in, day out, I don't think they're an underthinker. I don't think we have many underthinkers in the audience, because the underthinkers are just off living their lives.
Yeah.
They're off just kind of having what I assume is a generally uncomplicated existence, which I'm quite envious of.
I don't know if anybody has an uncomplicated existence.
Fair, but I'm just saying this is a show I think that has attracted a kind of a person who tends to be in their own head a lot. Probably that's why they like the show, because it lets them get out of their own head for up to 60 to 80 minutes a day. So I think these are a lot of folks that could probably benefit from this book. So thanks, Carolyn. Appreciate you. Maestro?
On your mark.
On your mark.
Get set.
Well.
Ready. Go.
Everybody rattle, dazzle.
If it's not the toilet paper queen of Jacksonville, Florida.
Is that how you want to be known, Lauren?
Lauren Castelli. I can't remember if it was, I think it was toilet paper. I don't think it was, it might have been paper towel or maybe toilet. I think it was toilet paper.
I think it was toilet because she, at least at the time, I'm not sure what Lauren's doing these days, was in charge of like kind of paper products at a large Home Depot concern or something like that. I'm sorry, Lauren. I'm totally messing up your canon here.
Well, here's part of the reason, because remember when this conversation happened, it was during the 24-hour Vaniversary show, which is insane that happened. We got into a van, well, like a fancy, like Sprinter van with a driver, and Corey Schreppel hiding in the back. And we just drove around broadcasting for 24 hours. We went to my house in Bellingham. We went out to pick up Jen. We had Sean there. We had a rotating cast of folks. But Lauren called in because we could also take phone calls. I mean, that honestly, we should be more proud that worked.
Yeah. Get
insane.
thee a Schreppel. Everybody needs a Schreppel.
Get thee to a Schreppel. But a different day, that'd be a good show title, but we already have the booty keeps the score.
That's right.
But anyway, Lauren called into that, and what I remember the story being was that Lauren worked somewhere where they bought large amounts of they had either they serviced a number of facilities and they changed out the paper products in the bathrooms or something. There was some, and every once in a while they would measure. They would unroll a roll of toilet paper to make sure they weren't getting shorted.
Yeah, like the vendors, whoever was providing them with the things I believe they were selling, I think, they would unroll long things and measure them out and make sure that they were actually getting what they paid for.
Now, I have to ask you a question, Andrew. Either I'm having flashbacks from my colonoscopy, or you picked these two messages because they both, after the city, say "Dear Lovies" to us.
I did not do that on purpose.
I want to say I mispronounced Carolyn's. I misstated Carolyn's. Carolyn did not say "Dear Lovelies." Carolyn said "Dear Lovies."
I did not
Lauren
notice this.
Castelli pronounced chèvre by Lauren's own description. So let's just rewind this tape a little bit. Carolyn in Encinitas says "Dear Lovies" and then goes on to talk about what she wants to talk about. And now our other dazzling donor, Lauren Castelli of Jacksonville, Florida, says "Dear Lovies."
That is a coincidence because I didn't even pull these in order. I just kind of had to pull them very quickly from our list of dazzling donors today. And I was sort of looking at length, I think, and I did not realize that I picked two dazzling donor messages that both begin with the greeting, "Dear Lovies." That's astounding.
I mean, I don't know if we've had any messages this year that have said "Dear Lovies." And then
Is
we
there
get
any chance that in copying and pasting, either John or I did something that made this happen?
Lauren, if you're hearing this, can you confirm, and also Carolyn, can you confirm that you wrote "Dear Lovies" in your message? I would really like this to be true.
My mind is kind of blown. Good catch on that. Wow.
So here's what else Lauren says. "Ahoy, hoy, biz boys. I keep thinking I'll have a stroke of inspiration and write an incredibly eloquent, heartfelt, and hilarious message, but it hasn't happened yet. And John pretty much hates me right now, huh? A winky emoji. I can't imagine that would be true, Lauren."
Well, those two have a history. I think this is a reference. I think it started with like some sort of a personal loan gone bad or something.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of bad blood there.
But what I can say, Lauren, is that each week when we have our TBTB meeting, it starts with the reading of the minutes. And then the second thing is John listing all the listeners he hates.
Yeah.
And you were not on the list this week.
No, that's right.
You were notably
you've been
absent from the list.
down the list, actually. Then you dropped
You actually
off.
officially fell off the list this week. So.
No, I think Lauren just probably sent this a little bit later than maybe we had originally asked or something. But it's not a big deal. We appreciate
No, Lauren, we appreciate you very
so
much. Lauren says, so this year, I'll just say that I love you guys and the 10 so much. Please keep the fun going another year. We need you. Good luck to all. And please, if you will, play the Cooking with Sean DeTore theme while you read this. Okay, hold
that's
on.
on me. I'm sorry. Do you have
I got
it there?
this. Yeah.
I didn't pre-read it. Doggone it. This is really on me.
No, here we go. Let me play this. Let me get this going here. We've got it.
Okay.
I really love how the entire time signature changes for that piano.
For that little bridge.
Keyboard or whatever that is. P.S. If anybody remembers the Hello Most of You drop and what it comes from, please let me know. I think it's from the 2015-ish era. Hello Most of You. Do you remember that drop?
Now, here's the
Ring
deal.
any bells?
I can't remember if this is something that we've already... I feel like we already did this on the show. I know that Lauren and I have gone back and forth, I think like last year or a couple years ago, about this drop. I think she was texting me saying, like, can you help me identify this drop? I have no idea what this drop is. Hello, most of you. I have no idea what that is. I thought I had asked you about it too, Luke, but I can't remember right now. But it doesn't ring a bell to you either, huh?
No, it sounds like it would be from that drop of the guy saying, said another way, who's the guy? He's doing some kind of bad corporate comedy.
Yeah, that's Workaholics. That is, my name is
Eric. They call me Cool Eric. One time.
Exactly. That's the drop you're thinking of, but I don't.
It feels like it's in that universe of like, hello, most of you sounds like a kind of from a cringy kind of corporate environment, The Office type of thing. But that's it. I don't have a specific memory of it.
I have no memory of it other than that this must be, I mean, it's kind of driving me bananas now too, and I don't even remember it. I can't think of how Lauren gets, I don't understand how Lauren measures any toilet paper these days, knowing that this has been dogging her for years now.
Well, it's become her full-time, not just her passion, Andrew, not just her avocation, but her vocation is trying to find this drop. So let's help Lauren. If you know what, hello, most of you, if you know where that came from, let us know so we can let Lauren know. Lauren says, it lives in my head, though, and it makes me laugh constantly. I would love to find it. Well, we would love to help you find that, Lauren, and we really appreciate your awesome support, both financially, but just as a friend of the show for all these years. So thank you very much. We couldn't do this without you.
And hope your fam's doing well.
Have you seen these new Seahawks ads that they just released, Andrew?
No, I have no idea.
Oh yeah, you've been in a little bit of a, you've been otherwise occupied, as it were. They dropped. Actually, I have to be honest with you. I think one of them is very clever. They're like, they look like an early 1990s, maybe late 80s, early 1990s, like G.I. Joe commercial, like something like Transformers meets G.I. Joe, like that kind of commercial that would play on after-school cartoons. That was very much intended for like probably kind of a boy of a certain age, where you've got people playing with the toys, kind of making them fight.
I always say on the After These Messages podcast, that's one of my favorite things from old kids' toys commercials that I don't think they do anymore, or at least as much, which is just like you literally see the kids' hands and they're saying, bang, bang, I got you, Cobra Commander.
Yes. So they're doing that exact thing. I'm going to try to play this, but I think it might be from their Instagram page. So it's like, of course, impossible to play. But this is how they announce their schedule. So this isn't even the commercial that I'm...
Oh, yeah.
Did you hear about this?
No, I just know that the teams have been getting really clever in the past few years with their schedule announcements, and a lot of them have gone viral in very fun ways.
So I'm having a little trouble because where I'm finding this right now is from the Seahawks website. Let me just put in Seahawks schedule announce. What they did is they basically made like a pretend toy commercial that involves the toys of the teams they're playing, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
like, let me see.
I have it here if you don't.
Oh, you got then you should play.
I think so. It looks like this is a long one. This is like a 2-minute version of it, but I think this is what you're talking about. Let's give this a shot here.
Rockstar Spoon is back, and he's making noise.
We in Seattle, baby. Yes, sir. Shout out to the 12s. Y'all know how we
But
do.
he's under attack. It's the Minnesota Viking, the Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and the Arizona Cardinal. Is Spoon cooked? No. It's Hawks legend Steve Largent with Power Hands. For the 50th, we're bringing you an all-pro squad of action-packed legends like Tez Rex with Dino Power Tail Whip and supersized Big Wall Jones. Now that sketchy cat from the Jags is littering on the field.
We don't do no littering over here, man. Put your trash in the garbage.
Go Hawks! Uh-oh, it's the Falcons, Saints, Panthers, Colts, Texans, Commanders, Steelers, and the mighty Tennessee Titans. But they're no match for Bam Bam Cam's Bam Bam Van. And who's riding along? It's Marshawn. Get off me!
Now, Luke, is this the one that you heard, or is this a different version or a longer version?
That's a longer version, but that's the one that I heard. That's not the one that was triggering to me, by the way. That's a totally different thing.
Okay.
But it's kind of from the same. I thought that was a sort of a clever way to roll out the season. Now, here's what I will say. I have no idea who they're playing from hearing that.
It's too cacophonous for me.
It's too much going on. Like, what I'd really like, I'd really like a list of the teams they're playing, and if it's home or on the road, and then also what time. Would be a really good way for me to know about the upcoming season.
Now, the one somebody resurfaced one from 2 years ago. I think that might be the gold standard in these sort of viral schedule release videos, which I think was for. I think it was the Jaguars 2023 schedule, and they went out somewhere in whatever the city was. They went out to like the main drag where you had a bunch of young kind of partying people.
Oh,
like in
I
their
remember
early
this.
20s, and they were just flashing them like logos of the opposing teams,
helmets,
and then helmets and no logos. The one I saw was definitely logos, and then they had to guess. One of them was just the Cleveland Browns helmet, which is their logo, which confused the interviewee, and it was just hilarious. These people who have no idea what they're looking at saying, just making up the wrong teams, and then they put it together, and it was so well edited.
That was a very clever idea, definitely. This is now it's a Seahawks commercial, but it's remembering the Kingdom bathrooms, and what it is like a fake commercial for like a little kind of like diorama of a Kingdom bathroom, and then showing you different. And again, it's like there are like characters. There's like toys and stuff. Here, let me play it for you. This one I actually do have here saved. Take a listen.
Remember the bathrooms at the Kingdome? Now you can relive all those memories with the Kingdome Men's Restroom Playset, including an overflowing trash can, powder soap, and a double-wide urinal trough to really pack them in. Includes free 90s dads. Imagine them complaining about getting flagged for being too loud while washing their hands at the signature circular sink. Kingdome's Restroom Playset. The bathrooms weren't nice, but they were memorable. Urinal cakes and powdered soap sold separately. Batteries not included.
That is wonderful. That speaks right to.
It's pretty funny.
Yes.
And it's accurate.
Yes.
It's accurate. They got there was famously the circular sinks that you would stand on. Now here's the thing. We want to talk about Mandela effect. In my mind as a little kid, I had actually somehow turned that into the urinals were circular.
Oh, that would be very weird.
It'd be insane. It would be totally insane. You'd be peeing into a circle. But like, I remember those sinks from being a kid, but then I remember later, one of the reasons. By the way, listener Brian also sent me this on Instagram this morning, and he said something to the effect of those bathrooms. I could find the exact thing he said. Basically, those bathrooms traumatized a whole generation of of young Seattle boys who then became very, let's see, here's what Brian said. The Kingdome raised an entire generation of shy bladders in the Northwest because those bathrooms were so traumatizing. But also for me, I had somehow taken the circular sink concept, and in my mind, I misremembered it as, no, you pee into, like, there's a urinal that's circular, and it just added to this overall sense of dread about having to use the restroom facility at the Kingdome. And I do think was part of why I was trying so hard that fateful day to not go up and use the facilities in the Kingdome when I had a number 2 situation happening. And of course, that ended very poorly, as everybody who listens to the show knows.
Can I just say, I'm nodding along here and saying yes, yes, as if I've been to the King Dome bathroom before. I haven't.
Well, you almost have from seeing that commercial.
Well, I will say,
seriously.
but there's so much about this that is also just very reminiscent of these types of bathrooms of my youth as well. This exact sink, my father had one of these in the shop that that he and his brother. Yeah,
a circle.
Yes, exactly like this with that crunchy
Whoa.
Cintas soap. I had to clean as I got older. I had to clean that thing when I was kind of doing the janitorial services for the company. That's very classic, and also I'm pretty sure the original Cleveland Stadium, I think it was called.
Sure.
Or no, wait, Cleveland.
Paul Brown Stadium.
I'm trying to remember what it was called growing up because I don't want to get it confused with the arena in Richmond. But anyway, yeah, like whatever the Cleveland Brown Stadium was, it was like very, very similar to this. Those big tin troughs that you would pee in. Like this is like this just, and then to see it like kind of portrayed as one of these, like you see these little action figure, just normal guys, just using the restroom or whatever. This is well done.
Cleveland Municipal Stadium, maybe?
Yeah, that's it, Cleveland Municipal Stadium.
Now, was that sink in the bathroom at Walsh Manufacturing, or was it out on the floor because you had to wash your hands if they got a bunch of grease on them or something?
No, it was in the bathroom. Well, there was like a I'll see if my dad has any photos or anything, but it was like there was sort of a lot. There was out in the shop area, and again, for people who don't know, this is kind of a steel fabrication kind of shop situation, very Rust Belty, if you will. And when you go out into the shop part, you would walk in, and it was actually this big locker room area because I think some guys would come in and maybe change into their work uniforms there, so they didn't have to drive home in their greasy clothes or whatever. And then when you went further back into the locker room was an actual restroom, but in the middle of the locker room area where you would wash your hands after going to the bathroom was this giant round, that almost pebbled kind of material sink or whatever, and then you would hit one button and it would make the fountain water come out of the center of it.
This Walsh Manufacturing sounds like a more robust operation than I have perceived it to be. If they needed a circular sink, so many people were washing their hands. How many people worked there? Like 20 maybe?
No,
30?
more than that. I think closer to maybe 40 or 50 or something.
Wow, that's a pretty like a locker room. This is I'm impressed, man. Although I have been to the website of the current version, which is also very impressive. But you said that the latest version is really scaled up, right?
The website, I haven't been to the facilities in years and years. I mean, you wouldn't walk in and be necessarily. I mean, it was a big. Yeah, it was kind of cool. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, and we're running out of time. Yeah, I'm glad I had that experience working there, growing up. There was like there were a lot of nooks and crannies of this place. There was like, I had a job similar to yours, which was like sorting pipe fittings and putting them all back in their places, or bolts, and guys would come back from jobs with just buckets of leftover bolts and everything. I have to like sort them out, and there's this big mezzanine area. There are a lot of places I could go hide and eat my bologna sandwiches because I was scared of all the men who worked there.
It was like when I worked at Gene Johnson Plumbing, and Joe Dahlman and I would hide all day from the plumbers because we were also terrified of them. And we didn't want to do any work. And we just wanted to not be around when somebody was like, hey, somebody come help move this. We wanted to be not seen and not heard.
Yeah.
Speaking of not being seen and not being heard, I think we've arrived at the end of our broadcast week. Andrew, I'm happy to tell you, your race is run, sir.
Yes.
Once the show is posted, you can blissfully slide into your weekend and do whatever you want, sir, and eat whatever color of dye your little heart desires.
I'm just going to drink the dye directly. Now, I mean, the last big question for me is, and did we get an answer for this for you? Do you know the next time you're recommended to go in for your second one? Because it could be 10 years for me, it could be 5, or it could be 3 based on what they find.
I should know this. I think I might have gotten a fiver.
You got a 5er? I'm hoping
they
for a
got
10er.
5 on it. I've got to look. 10er. I mean, 10er obviously seems like that's the best case because that means they have their assessment is that. Mm-hmm. Is that we don't need it. There's nothing going on here, and obviously as you go down, the assumption is they're like, well, you should keep an eye on it. I think I might be a 5. I should warg back into the KP portal and see what they actually told me.
I feel like I would have to have like some sort of a like literally they'd have to find Mr. Clean down there in order for me to get a 10er. I'm guessing they're going to put me on a 5.
I was honestly pretty psyched about 5.
Yeah, I
was psyched about it not being get back down here.
If it was, but boy,
sir, are you still in the car?
yeah. Turn around. You can make a U-turn at that intersection up there. If it's a 10er, that means I'm not going back in until I'm almost 60 years old, which is something.
Do you think we'll still be? Do you think our goal should be to still be doing this show when you get your 10er?
Yes, I think so. I was talking
when you get that gold watch, which they found weirdly up there.
The watch. I was talking to a family member who's older. And said that they got to the point where they said, well, that's probably your last one. You don't need to come in for these anymore. I'm like, boy, talk about a mixed blessing there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There you go. You know what? That's a reminder to be grateful on this Friday for you and I that we're still in the phase where they need to do that, as opposed to saying it's probably at this point not going to make a big difference. So there you go. Here's to colonoscopies. Colonoscopies for everyone, Andrew.
on Luke.
On me.
Ring the bell.
Yeah. I've already paid most of my copay this year, so it's honestly house money. Let's do it.
Nice.
All right. That is going to do it for this week of TBTL. We are going to be back here on Monday with more Imaginary Radio for all of you, so we hope you can circle back for that, as it were. In the meantime, have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves, and please remember, no mountain too tall.
And good luck to all.
Power out.